Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spin Rack, and today I'm doing a video on the Warlord Saga. I was asked to do two issues, 272 and 273, but 271 is the beginning of it. Well, it might not actually be the actual beginning, but it ultimately there's a tidbit at the end of this storyline, which I guess I should get to. I was going to start with it, but I'm going to get to it at the end, right? So this would be the tale that, actually, the tale that I think the fans struggle with. I think as far as the inking of this issue, the fans were kind of out of it. Now, we go to my extra beat up copy of Comic Interview. John Byrne talked to Byrne's editor Jim Salicrup. That says talks about this issue, that it was successful for him, the style, but the fan might not like him going back to trying to do a pseudo Kirby style. And then he says, I like 272 and 273. That was the Warlord. 272 issues, and we finally got to see Reed's father. That's probably the weakest story I've done so far. It was a transition between editors that was done when Budiansky had negated a bunch of stuff I wanted to do in a particular story. Told me not to do X, Y, and Z. And I found that all in all, I really don't think it's a good story. There's a lot of stuff I wish I could have said that I didn't. I don't lay all the blame on Budiansky's feet. I take a lot myself. It's just not a good story. I think the stories have been getting back to what they're supposed to be since then. Certainly the artwork has. So Byrne is not too happy with the storyline. He's happy with the first part, but not the two parts afterwards, right? So that, I guess, would lay some claim to it not being good, but let's check it out, right? I'm not gonna these attempts to go through these books and not to change people's minds. And the other big issue is right on this page, is that Sue has a modified version of a mullet, right? But it's not strange for the 80s. You had Marky Post. Obviously, there's a lot of rockers that had mullets. And this hairstyle was actually a contest, and this was the one that won, right? You joke that it's not the winner. But anyway, at the time in Marvel, I can't really have too much issue with the mullet, because at this time there was a lot of there's a lot of Marvel mullets that were pretty bad that came afterwards. There was Rogue. I think almost everyone in the X-Men had a mullet, including John Romita Jr. And then you also had who else? You had Spider-Man later in the 90s. Tony Stark got one in the 90s as a businessman. So I'm not going to be, let's go back to the Avengers. I'm sorry. I don't know what Storm, I don't know what, what's the name, the Wasp had. She had like the Special K and the, what's the name, Ninja, Ninja 3, the Possession. So I think it was over a year she had this hairstyle. People made too much of a big deal of it, right? That they scream and cry about that. And there's a ton of other mullets in the 80s. And even Nightwing had a mullet in the 90s. So, like, come on, right? So this is Reed's birthday, right? And he almost forgot. That's going to lead to a bit in the story. You know, a little family moment. We got the supporting cast. Byrne has... For a while, they didn't have too much of a supporting cast, but now we have Alicia, who at this point is the friend to the Fantastic Four, and Wyatt Wingfoot is their companion, right? Then, with Franklin's help, he blows out the candles. So as the party goes on, Sue knows there's something going on with Reed, right? So she's like, we're going to have to talk about it. And then realize he doesn't remember his mother's eyes. Right? He thinks about it. And he says, hey, I thought of the process back in FF255 that it had no problems, but actually there's pieces of his mind that are gone. And then he remembers back to his earliest memory that when they battled Gormu. Right? So this really goes into the pseudo Kirby Ayers type period. And they run into one of those Atlas monsters. And like everyone in that period had a hat, so Reed is no different. And as they shoot this character, it becomes stronger. The US can't get any help. This thing is just okay, but Reed Richards, having his own setup. He goes into the spaceship, he's figuring out certain things, and he tests something out and he finds out he's right. It's the only possible solution. But then Ben Grimm pops out of nowhere, right? And he actually, Reed saying he has to continue. So Reed looks like the mad scientist in the story, right? He's going to give Gormu more power. And he hits him with it. And he's like, yes, more. I always thought that was cool. I am defeated. And this is kind of where they realize that the team, this is why they kind of go along with Reed, because they trust him, because most of the time he's right. And this one, he was very wrong about. But then at the same time, he starts thinking about the thing. And this is one of the best parts in Byrne's run, is that there's periods without Ben where Reed has, is upset with himself for allowing Ben to become the thing. And it's not something that Reed gets used to, and that's cool. But everyone, I don't know. So, and the thing is saying the nature of his powers isn't because of the planet, but, at the same time, they say, let's take this trip back to Central City where Reed grew up at. And this is, I think, after an artist, a British artist named Giles, this character. And they go in there, and then they realize, hey, I thought you guys had money struggles. And he says, hey, everything's been fine except for the ghost, right? And this is an interesting way to get into the story, right? You have one element in here that leads you to the next. It's not directly related, but it leads you right into the next thing. They get to utilize their power, and then what? There's a time machine there, right? And this almost perfect, because it's an element that if Reed remembered the time machine, he would know it for when he was fighting Dr. Doom. But then at the same time, him not having memories, you can add in the story without having to say, well, why didn't he say it back in the past? He forgot. So we have one of the best titles ever. My brother hated this title, but it was, to me, it's definitely one of the best titles, right? So this is when they say, Byrne has already complained about it, fans have complained about it. We got this nice cool with the FF with their safari vest, which is very cool, and then bang. This is how we're starting this issue. Look at that. That's how we're starting the issue. Getting to see the time machine in perspective as it goes up. up and transport them. So we're already starting off in the good. They go out there, they realize the only person that can go out there should be Sue, right? Because she can be invisible. They go to this town, because the time machine also shifts and doesn't allow them to go into their own timeline, right? So they shifted and they followed Reed's father, who they're looking for, and it led him here, right? And this guy's the old Western thing, but actually it's not the old West. They have these futuristic guns. Sue tried to save the guy, but it didn't work out. So he realizes that he can use his heat-seeking nature of his gun to find out where Sue is, right? Sue tries to get him to drop it, but he doesn't. And then she gets attacked, and then the FF go into action. Then you get the Martian tripod that stepped on the She-Hulk, but not for long. He says his name, and there's something that was said between these two that they don't really reveal yet. It's a Neanderthal. Well, not quite. Saying his father, he can't believe his father was a pacifist, would now become the warlord. Now, this is something that people have forgotten when they utilize him. Definitely Tom DeFalco. I'm not sure how he's been used in the Dan Slott run, but he shouldn't be like this anti-hero, Reed's father. So here's Reed, this woman who's been watching these other Neanderthal creatures, and we realize it looks like he could be the warlord, right? So we get to the next issue. Followed, you're the warlord. So I guess it's said that's cut and dry, right? This one, Byrne also lettered this page, so that's a little rougher for me, right? But there's gonna be some cool stuff in here, right? The tripod gets up and it's about to break out. You could also see She-Hulk and Wyatt kind of getting together. And she's this woman who was married to Nathaniel Richards, is a tough cookie. This one is automated. And then we have these Valkyrie type women. And he says his name is Richards and they want to kill him. And then they say, remember a time when he wasn't what he seemed. And then we're going to get into the history of it, the struggle with the people and their struggles, and then the warlord came. Right? And he came and he made deals and he helped them out with tech and whatnot. Then he declared himself ruler of the world. Reed has his moment thinking about his father, and then he's just gonna walk up and approach. And then he's trying to talk to him, and he said, "Here's my answer." And that leads to another cool shot, right? And I revealed it too soon. Sorry, y'all. We get the continuation. Really cool way to set up a long-standing battle in a short issue. And they're going to set up this bomb. But Wyatt decides to throw a rock in their plans. And oblivion. And She-Hulk is there. This is it. This is a cool part about having a supporting cast and not always have the heroes save the day. And then we run into Reed's father. He's not the warlord. It was actually his wife, right? And he's going to stay here and fix the place. It's his fault. So he's going to fix it. But, of course, he becomes evil or anti-hero, right? So we had this character. He's in the future. He thinks everything is boring. And then he goes and reveals that he stole some stuff from an ancestor. And he utilizes it. And going to show up in an upcoming Avengers series, right? So this right here is connected to Rama Tut, who's from the FF, right? Early FF, right? So Byrne has established that Rama Tut is connected to Reed, right? And he says an ancestor, right? But at one point, I think it's called, the cover's called House Divided. I have this version here. The problem with Rama Tut was at one point, he's supposedly Kang and Immortus. But at the same time, when Stan and Jack had it, they decided when Rama Tut saves, this is the same character that's in this book here. That character that's there, that's him. He decides when he saves Doom, they're talking and he says he took, his time machine from a relative, and thinking that the relative is Doom, because Doom has a time machine. He says, wait, was it not? It was I who built the time machine. What if I am not your ancestor? What if I myself went to the future? What if you are me? What if Rama Tut and Doom are the same man? You mean you yourself traveled to the 25th century, taking my name, and you might actually be me? Or perhaps one of your trips to the past, you became a gypsy who became Dr. Doom, who could be the same man living in two different ages. But if we are both the same man, how can we coexist in the same eternity, right? So that was the original thing. That would mean that 3 characters are all the same. Now they snipped that and we put Rama Tut as a relative of Reed's, right? So that leads not these 3 or 4 people being the same, right? So we got through it. It's when I read this again, I kind of enjoyed it, It's not mainly because definitely some parts of the art, but it's just a fun sort of story, right? But don't take my word for it. There's a lot of people out there that struggle with this one, but we looked through it. It's got a great lead-in, right? The lead-in to the story, and got some wacky time travel, and then we got the Warlord here. So we got through it. Spinner Rack out.